Dreams After Dark.
You can advertise your business on Night Dreams Talk Radio, and you will be heard worldwide. Why not contact us at nightdreamstalkradio@gmail.com. Coming to you from some far point station, like a cosmic tumbleweed, both north and south of the Pleiades. Here's your host, Gary Anderson.
And our guest tonight is Lyle Blackburn. And I'll tell you, he's written some really good books on cryptids. And Lyle, I mean, this book here, where is it available at?
You can get it on Amazon. All my books are available on Amazon. I also have a online store if you'd like autographed copies. So those will be available at lyleblackburn.com. So they're available in paperback. Some are available in hardback and also in digital format as well.
Ah, great. Now, too, if people want to communicate with you about, seeing a cryptid, is there a way they can get a hold of you?
Yeah. If you drop by my site at lyleblackburn.com and go to the contact page, definitely let me know if you've seen something strange. I research all sorts of creatures and from all over the North American continent, so I'm always interested to hear sightings and perspectives on this.
Now, a question, Lyle. What is the most scariest cryptid you've got reports on and that you had investigated about?
I think the general consensus is that Dogman, or what they call dogmen, is the creepiest and scariest, and certainly some of the reports I've gotten along those lines are quite eerie. And Dogman is essentially reports of creatures that, for lack of a better term, kind of a werewolf type thing, but actually a bipedal canid, something, not something necessarily supernatural that is a man that transforms into a wolf, but some sort of a upright dog-like thing that people have seen. So I've gotten several reports where, people have seen these in rural wooded areas, from either running across the road. Some reports where people have been in their homes and either looked out the window and seen something like this, or it was actually looking in the window. And now, say from your Bigfoot story, typically Bigfoot, sightings are, fairly short and brief, and the creature just seems to be, roaming off in the woods. But there's something about these dogman type things, and I suppose that could be the association with werewolves, that is just quite scary. And the witnesses almost always in those cases shows a great level of fear. There's a famous case from Wisconsin about the Bray Road Beast, and we did a documentary called Bray Road Beast several years ago, and covered a lot of sightings, and that's sort of the hub of it, was in Wisconsin, where a lot of sightings dated back to the 1980s. So for the Dogman thing, that's kind of the most famous. Beast of Bray Road would be the most famous, but there's encounters like that all over North America, including Canada and all the way down to Texas.
Now, has there been any, reports of them being aggressive towards humans?
Yeah, there's some. It's kind of like the Bigfoot case, where most of them, are seen crossing roads or in the woods, and the people quickly get away or, don't want any contact. But there are times when these things, come at people. I remember one report where somebody was in a car and this thing jumped on the back of the car. And certainly you would think that if one of these, was to get a hold of you, that'd probably be the last anybody ever saw of you. And because they just seem quite scary and obviously strong and lethal like a bear or anything else that's big and has claws. So, there's definitely aggressive reports.
Well, there's all these reports, of like the missing in the national parks, and some people think, oh, it's aliens. It's all kinds of, speculation. But maybe some of these missing people that are gone missing in the forest maybe ran into, a cryptic or stuff like that. Part of, two of my children married into Indian tribes. One was a Muckleshoot. I can't remember the other one. But I got to talk to the medicine woman, back a year or two ago with the Muckleshoot Indian tribe. And she was talking to me about Bigfoot going back, 100 years ago, that they were very aggressive. There were stories, passed on and passed on and passed on. And what she said, like the squaws would be down at the river, washing clothes. They would have their baby with them, keep an eye on them. And these group of Bigfoot would come running across the river, grab, either the squaw or the baby or both. And then, the warriors of the tribe would go out and then they would find remains. And what she said, that Bigfoot were cannibals. So have you heard stuff like that?
Yes, a lot of the older tales up in the Pacific Northwest were exactly what you're describing. The lore from the Native American tribes that lived up there that seemed to be very aware of these creatures. They had a much more sort of a just a more down-to-earth view of it. They knew they were there, and they respected them or feared them. And there were a lot of these stories which said that these Bigfoot-like creatures were kidnapping the young ones. They were aggressive, and all of those things. And that was very prevalent in the older stories. And again, I think on modern, we look at the Patterson-Gimlin film and you just see a creature that sort of wants to get away from you. But the Native Americans had a much different view of those creatures, especially up in that area. So that's part of the history.
Yeah, that makes, like I said, that makes me wonder, like some of these, hunters and people, going out in the woods, nature lovers, never return. I mean, granted, maybe they got shot by a hunter, maybe they fell off a cliff, maybe they had a heart attack, but maybe some cryptid could have got their hands on them too.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, there are, I'm sure by and large most people disappeared of their own means or natural things, but there are a certain number of those cases where unexplainable things happened, especially with some of the ones that involved kids, where the kid would be missing for 3 days or something, and maybe a 3-year-old or something, and then they would miraculously be found in the middle of brambles and briars with no scratch on them, and they would say that a bear took care of me.
Yeah.
Now, bears generally can pick up a human child and carry them through brambles and things and any of that sort of thing. So it just leads to conjecture that perhaps the kid, didn't know a bear from a Bigfoot, and the Bigfoot did carry away the child, even abduct the child. Luckily, the child was found. But sure, yeah, I mean, conceivably, if these things exist, I think they would be naturally, whether it's just curiosity, if they were to see a kid, they're likely to pick them up. Or if it's an aggressive Bigfoot and you're in their territory, then who knows what they're going to do. And you would simply disappear, and you would be, a hiker that nobody ever found. Who's to say that a Bigfoot didn't cause that disappearance?
Oh, yeah. Now, getting into Thunderbird, I've watched on, some of the cable channels. There's people go out and try to find Thunderbird. So far, when they go out looking for them, they have never found them. But then again, like I just said, when you're not looking for stuff like this, all of a sudden, a group of people will see a sighting.
Right. I think Thunderbirds are even harder to find simply because this is a flying creature. It can move great distances, and there's just not as many reports, so there's conceivably fewer of them. And the places where you would need to look would be nesting areas and places which would, be higher up. So, something like that is definitely harder to set out to find. You're not going to find footprints and things like you would with Bigfoot. And those sightings are a little more sporadic and spread out. So which seems natural if the thing can fly, it's moving great distances. And, it's one of those things where, it's hard to judge. If something's flying overhead, it's hard to judge how big the wingspan is because you don't really truly know how high up the creature is. But there's quite a few credible witnesses that, swore to the fact that these things, whatever they saw was much larger than any typical bird, something with a 20-foot wingspan, and it's those intriguing encounters that lead us to believe that, perhaps even the Native Americans that had tales about Thunderbirds, perhaps they had seen these things as well.
Oh, yeah. And I do think they probably do exist. Again, there's a vast amount of area in Canada and the United States where people even haven't put their foot on the ground.
Yeah, there really is. And I think that's one thing that people don't truly realize. You've got skeptics and naysayers that, you're at the office and they find out you like Bigfoot. They're like, yeah, there can't be a Bigfoot. Where would, how in the world couldn't we find them? Well, these people typically haven't set foot in some of the swampy and forested and mountain areas that I've been in and you. There is a lot of places out there for small populations of animals to exist and not be seen or rarely seen. Even in the South, there's a lot of discontiguous forestry, but there's a lot of swamps and other places where, there's just acres and miles of deep, wooded, undeveloped forestry where something could hide. So it's, it may seem improbable that some of these cryptids could live right under our nose, but it's not completely impossible. And I think if you were to drop somebody, For example, in the Sulphur River bottoms near Boggy Creek,